What are we discussing on today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast? Have the Dbacks hit a new rock bottom after their series loss to the Pittsburg Pirates? And are the Dbacks the most disappointing team in the National League?
You are Locked on Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. You're listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas, multimedia journalist and graphic designer. So please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com. On there, you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. On today's Locked on D-Backs podcast, we're going to be discussing, have the D-Backs hit a new rock bottom after their series loss to the Pittsburgh Pirates? Are the D-Backs the most disappointing team in the National League? And we'll preview the schedule for the rest of June. Does it get easier for Arizona? We'll discuss. But first, I want to say thank you for making Locked on Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms, so please continue to tell your friends. And one of those platforms is YouTube. We try to go live on YouTube Sunday through Thursday after D-Backs games. If you watch it live, please drop comments in the YouTube section because I will read it live throughout the show. I want it to be interactive, so drop comments in the YouTube section. Don't forget to follow me on social media at CreatorThomas24 for my personal account on Twitter, or look up Locked on Diamondbacks, both Twitter and Instagram for the podcast handle, because I always tweet out before I go live, or hit that little bell icon next to the subscribe button on YouTube so you also get notified when I go live. But now let's get into the podcast. Back here on the Locked on D-Backs podcast, let's discuss if the D-Backs have hit a new rock bottom after losing their series to the Pittsburgh Pirates. Seems insane to say because the D-Backs have had so many low moments in the month of May. You could have said game 2 against the Pittsburgh Pirates was rock bottom, considering how they lost that game, where your offense goes up 6-0. You get 7 quality innings from Corbin Burns, and you still lose. You get swept by the St. Louis Cardinals. You lose the last 2 games against the Dodgers after winning the first one, and those were 3-4 losses and a 3-1 loss against the Dodgers. You lose 12-14 to the Colorado Rockies, which is insane. You score 12 runs and lose to the Rockies. That should never happen. We know about that 11-14 loss against the Dodgers. There's been bad losses against the Phillies, the Rays, the Cubs. I mean, I'm going back to April now. I mean, there's been weeks of losses where they were terrible. This one against the Pittsburgh Pirates was probably the worst because coming into this series, the Pirates, the Pirates, why am I saying their name like that? It's like with a W. The Pirates were arguably the worst offense in the National League. You look at the stats, they were pretty much bottom 2 in every offensive category. Runs, OPS, home runs, they could do nothing. The Pirates offense even had a stretch where they went an entire month without scoring a run, if you could believe that. I have the dates here. Where did I put it? I believe, where did I just put it? Oh my goodness. I believe it was from like April 23rd to May 21st. I'm just going off the top of my head. Yeah. April 23rd to May 21st, the Pirates went a whole month without scoring more than 5 runs. Not 0 runs. A whole month without scoring more than 5 runs. In this series alone against the D-Backs, the Pirates had 2 separate innings where they scored at least 5 runs. They went a whole month without 5 runs. Now they did it twice in single innings. This is rock bottom for Arizona for now, because the thing is, it can get worse. Things can always get worse. This is a fully healthy D-Backs team that is struggling like this. We're a 500 ball club, barely losing to teams like the Pittsburgh Pirates when we're fully healthy. Things can get worse. There's still I don't want to, knock on wood injuries, but there's still ways for this season to go even more left. And as it currently stands, the path to the D-backs getting better just seems like picking your chin up, picking your spirit up, and hopefully start playing better because there's real no course of action from what the D-backs are saying. Torey Lovullo, despite how poor his management has been this season and the last few years, from everyone who's close to the D-backs, it sounds like his seat is not hot, not uncomfortable. It sounds like Torey's fine. I think Gambo was even saying you would have to wait at least 2 more years before we're even in the decision to potentially fire Torey Lovullo. I think that's insane. And I'm not even calling for Lovullo's job right now. But what I am saying is there needs to be a sense of urgency from Mike Hazen, from Derek Hall, from Ken Kendrick, where they light a fire under Lovullo's butt and you say, you know what? Come into my office. Let's have a chat. If this D-backs team does not start turning it around, that seat for you, Torey, is going to get a little bit hotter. You have multiple September collapses under your belt. You backed into the postseason in 2023. Yes, you made to the World Series, but that was an 84-win team with a negative run differential that barely made it to the playoffs. There's been a lot more disappointment than positivity under Torey Lovullo. Guys like Robbie Ray unraveled. Now we're seeing guys like Zach Gallen unraveled. If I'm the D-backs front office, I'm having a conversation with Torey and I say, we're not firing you today, but if things don't start to get better, if we don't see a marketable difference in our team going forward, things will have to change because you look at the spirit of these D-backs players right now, and they just seem lost up there. They don't have their confidence. Corbin Carroll's in a slump. I don't like the way he's swinging the bat. He has such bad body language when it feels like he's not performing at his best. Zach Gallen, I don't know what happened to that guy. He's lost like 4 straight starts now. 2 of the last 3 have come against the Rockies and the Pirates. Like, this is a pending free agent, and he is doing nothing to earn himself a big payday this offseason. As it currently stands with the D-backs, I just don't expect anything to change when it comes to Torey Lovullo. When it comes to this bullpen, it's not like we're going to go out there and trade for someone. The only way for this D-back situation to get better is if the players start performing better, because I can't sit here and act like Torey Lovullo is all of a sudden going to make better decisions that make me happy, right? He's still going to leave Kevin Ginkel out there for 5 or 6 batters, whether or not Kevin Ginkel is having a good season. Torey Lovullo is always going to do what Lovullo does. But for the D-backs, if they want to get better and make it to the postseason, they are just going to have to play better. I don't have a lot of faith in putting his team in the best positions because I look at a guy like Jordan Lawler. His development so far in 2025 has been horrendous. We barely play him. When we do start him, it's in the worst situations. Glad to see him start against the Pittsburgh Pirates, but it's like there was a game last week with a lefty in the Rockies. He sat for that, but then Lawler starts in the Yamamoto game. It's like we just never put our players in the best positions to succeed. And Lovullo's part of that. There's like a lot of discourse on D-backs Twitter of how much blame does Torey Lovullo really deserve for the D-backs struggles this season. I think he deserves a lot. I think he deserves arguably the most. It's him or the bullpen. I do think a lot of the bullpen struggles have been because of Torey Lovullo mismanaging the closer role early in the year, not defining roles with Martinez and Puck, throwing them out in any sort of situation, leaving guys in the game too long, going to the wrong relievers like Joe Mantiply at times. Like, yes, the bullpen has been bad, but I think Torey's management of the bullpen has also been horrendous. Like, it's the little things like Brian Reynolds in game 2, base open. He's 3 for 3. Righty Brian Reynolds going against the lefty Jalen Beeks. Pirates have a lefty on deck, and instead of walking Brian Reynolds, you pitch to him. He hits the big home run and increases the lead for the Pirates. Little things like that is why I blame Lovullo as much as the bullpen, because Beeks has to execute in that moment, but Lovullo also has to recognize for his team. Reynolds is hot. There's a lefty on the mound. Let's walk him and get to the next guy. No awareness by Lovullo in that situation. No awareness by these D-backs relievers in general when it comes to having a lead and having to have a shutdown inning right after. This bullpen has not been able to do that in 2025. But up next, you do play the struggling Washington Nationals. Where have we heard that before? Can that be a get-right series for the D-backs? We'll discuss that in segment number 3. But in segment number 2, I want to discuss if the D-backs are the most disappointing team in the National League. But before we get into that conversation, if you're looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious, crack into a good source of protein with the Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats, help keep you feeling fuller longer. I love Wonderful Pistachios, and the main reason is because of their variety of flavors. You could get shell, no shell, salted, unsalted. They even got some things with a little spice, with a little kick to it. Wonderful Pistachios has every flavor for everyone, and they're both healthy, they're delicious, they're nutritious, and a guy like me who loves going to the gym, they're also packed with protein. So get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Back here on the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, let's read a couple comments before we continue the pod. Robert Sleggers, he says, are Gallen's best days behind him? Sure does feel like it, Robert. That fastball effectiveness has gone down the last couple years, and it has gotten crushed this season, 2025. Very sad to see because he's a pending free agent. And the thing with Zach Gallen, I feel like his best days are just behind him in Arizona. I guarantee you he's going to sign with an East Coast team or a Chicago Cubs team and be fantastic in 2026. And then Coda Kid said, I'm going back into my Hobbit hole. I can't blame you, Coda Kid. The D-backs have been very disappointing in 2025. I want to discuss now if they have been the most disappointing team in the National League this season. And to do this exercise, we're just going to go through the National League, look at the standings, and decide if there has been a team more disappointing than the D-backs in 2025. Because the D-backs, I think, just off the rip on the short list, right? When you consider this is the most expensive team in D-backs franchise history. They're out there. They're spending money. We talk about the Scrooge Index, which basically says, how much of your revenue do you put back into your payroll? The D-backs are tied with the Dodgers for the second most in not just the National League, but in all of baseball. Both of those teams take their revenue and take 2/3 of their revenue and put it back into their payroll. And so despite the Dodgers making $600 million in revenue and the D-backs make like $250, they both take the same percentage of their revenue and put it back into their payroll. So the D-backs may not spend dollar for dollar what the Dodgers do, but they spend at the same rate as LA. But the Dodgers always get results when you look at their team, when you look at their standings. I would love to be a team where I'm just frustrated with them not winning the World Series every year, right? Because that's been the Dodgers thing. They're a choke artist that get to the World Series and lose. I would love that to be the fate of Arizona because right now they're great at building teams, but not great at winning games. And that's why I think you could definitely say they're one of the most disappointing teams in the National League because this has been a pretty healthy D-back season outside of Justin Martinez and AJ Puck. Not really a lot of reasons in terms of injuries they can say that have held back the D-backs this season. Gabby, Naylor, I guess Ketel has missed a little bit of time, but Perdomo, Eugenio, Lourdes, Thomas, Carroll, Pavin, Grichuk, your lineup has been there. Your rotation, Kelly, Fott, Gallen, Burns, Erod's on the injured list right now with a fake injury. Then we still have Ryan Nelson. Like it's literally, yes, your 2 best relievers are hurt for Arizona in arguably the worst bullpen in the National League. But overall, when I think about the makeup of this team, it's still way too talented to be where they are in the standings because you go through let's first start with the NL West. You compare the D-backs to the rest of their own division, and it's like they're supremely disappointed. Let's first start off with the fact that the D-backs have a -6 run differential. There's only one, two, three, four teams with a worse run differential in the National League than the D-backs. The Rockies, the Pirates, the Marlins, and the Nationals. So that off the rip tells you the D-backs are one of the most disappointing teams. Then you look at the D-backs compared to the rest of the NL West. Compared to the Dodgers, of course, the Dodgers are having a way better season. The Padres, coming into the year, were maybe my dark horse to be the most disappointing team in 2025. It felt like the Padres could be this year's Phoenix Suns, being so top heavy with talent. If a guy like Tatis gets hurt, what does that mean to the Padres franchise? Has not mattered. Their top end talent have been fantastic this season. Jackson Merrill has taken a step forward, and it looks like the D-backs could potentially be the Phoenix Suns 2.0. Even the San Francisco Giants, who, yes, they spent some money this offseason on the Willie Adameses, but on paper, they're still not as good as the D-backs, but as a team, they play so much better. Guys like Robbie Ray are having great seasons. Jung-Ho Lee, after a disappointing season last year, has looked like an all-star in 2025. And so when you look at the NL West compared to the D-backs, Dodgers are loaded with superstar talent. Padres loaded with top-end talent that are playing to their level. Then Giants, high floor team that are just extracting the most out of their talent as possible. So D-backs are definitely the most disappointing team, sans the Rockies in the NL West. Compare the D-backs to the Central. I mean, we know the Pirates are disappointing, but the Reds are a 500 team. They're frisky. They're still a team on the rise who are not exactly ready to win right now, but considering they have the same record as the D-backs who are ready to win right now, I would say D-backs are more disappointing than Cincinnati. Milwaukee is a team who I never like entering the season, never feels like they have elite top-end talent, and you always look at the end of the year, they're always there in the postseason, and once again, they're a game above 500. They have a better record than Arizona. I would definitely say D-backs more disappointing than the Brewers. The Cardinals, who just swept Arizona. This is like year one of a rebuild, but it goes to show you how good or how much a good manager can impact your team, because Marmol for the Cardinals has been fantastic. They're a plus 43 on the season, one of the best run differentials in the National League. And again, go look at that team on paper in terms of the talent. Not a lot, but everyone is just playing above their expectation level in 2025. Then the Cubs were a big dark horse team entering the season, plus 94 this year. Offense has been undeniable. They have been maybe the biggest, I don't know if surprise is the right word, because I think people thought the Cubs were going to be good, but not this good. Then you look at the NL East. So just through the first two divisions we talked about, the D-backs was definitely more disappointing than the Giants, the Padres, and Dodgers. So the Rockies are the only team you would say are more. Then the Cubs, Cardinals, Brewers, and Reds, D-backs more disappointing than them. The Pirates are the only team you would say is more disappointing. How about the NL East? Because we know the Marlins are. How about the Phillies? Probably not. They lead their division 35-19. You want Aaron Nola to be a little bit better this season, but Wheeler still looks like a Cy Young candidate. Their offense is still fantastic. Like, you're not picking the Phillies. You're not picking the Mets, who are right there for the NL East. I thought the Mets, despite adding Juan Soto, maybe a little overrated their second half of last year, because I didn't know if their pitching was going to be as sustainable, but their pitching once again has looked fantastic in 2025. Juan Soto has been good, not great. If he starts to pick it up, that Mets team can get even better. And so when you're comparing the D-backs to a lot of these teams, there's actually potential for a lot of those franchises to get even better. That's why the only team that has a realistic argument in the National League to be more disappointing than the D-backs in 2025 is the Atlanta Braves, who currently have a worse record than Arizona by a couple of games. But even the Braves, they do have they have a little excuse when it comes to health and injuries, and they probably will get better as the season progresses. Spencer Strider coming back off Tommy John. They just got Ronald Acuna back. Like, the Braves have recently added their best pitcher and their most dynamic player to their team. And so are the D-backs doing that? No. They can add, arguably their most dynamic reliever. They just added their most dynamic reliever probably in J-Mart. We hope AJ Puck can still come back, but those guys aren't Spencer Strider, and Ronald Acuna Jr. And so when comparing the D-backs to the rest of the National League, Yes, they are the most disappointing team. The NL East is pretty stacked at the top with the Phillies and Mets. They've been better than the D-backs. The Nats and the Marlins, we don't expect a ton from. The Braves are probably the only team in the National League they can even say has been disappointing this year. The Cubs have been playing better. The Cubs have been playing better than people thought. The Cardinals, the Brewers, the Reds, all the same can be said for them. Same with the Giants and the Padres. Like, you can actually make the argument every team in the National League pretty much is playing better than you would have expected entering the season. Giants, Reds, Milwaukee, Cardinals, Cubs. Like, you can name 5 teams in the NL where you say their stock is up from where it was entering 2025. The D-backs might be the only team where their stock is down, and that's disappointing to see considering this is the most talented team the D-backs have ever had in their franchise history. Now we'll look ahead to the D-backs' June schedule in segment number 3.
If you are out here and you're trying to manage your money, then I suggest using Monarch Money, because ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com.
Back here on the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. Now let's discuss the D-backs schedule and if things are going to get easier in the month of June. The first series that the D-backs play before the month of June, though, next up is the Washington Nationals. And on paper, you would think that would be a good series for Arizona, get their feet wet, hopefully get back on track. But that's what we were saying entering the series against the Pirates. And of course, the Pirates offense, which has been non-existent all season long, just put up 19 runs the last 2 games at Chase Field. And now it's like, what do you do if you're Arizona? Where is up? Where is down? D-backs play the Nationals next. The Nationals on the season are, at least at the time of me recording this podcast, 7 p.m. on Wednesday, they're 24-30. But the Nats already have a series win against the D-backs this season because, of course, they do. It feels like every National League team does. And in that series, we saw Corbin Burns struggle. We saw Erod give up 4 runs, but have a big strikeout performance. But it was really the offense that felt like they didn't show up in that series against the Nationals. They scored 3 runs in game 2, 4 runs in game 3. And it felt like a winnable series where the offense just left a lot on the plate. Guy like Mitchell Parker, who is having a nice season, but was kind of an unknown at the time. He just came out and dominated the D-backs in that game 2 start, I believe. And so we're looking mostly, I think, for the offense first to have a big bounce back in this series against the Nationals and do what they couldn't do last time. A guy like Lourdes Gurriel, I want to give him credit because I did a topic the other day kind of saying, hey, is Lourdes Gurriel the worst number 3 hitter in the National League? I still think my point stands. He's like a top 3 worst National League hitter overall from the number 3 spot. But I do want to give him credit. Over his last 24 games, he is 32 for 99. That is a 323 average and a 922 OPS. He has been on fire for 25 games now. So I want to give a little bit of credit to Lourdes Gurriel. We're going to need him to continue to step up in this next series. We need Corbin Carroll to break out of his slump because I think he has 2 hits in his last 6 games, which is just not good enough. I think the righties have been playing really well recently. We need the lefties to come back around. Early in the season, in the month of April, it was like, oh, Carroll, Thomas, Pavin, Naylor, they carry this offense. Meanwhile, Gurriel and Suarez, Moreno do nothing. Now it's the reverse. Gurriel, Suarez, Moreno seem like the stars every night. Meanwhile, the Carrolls, the Pavins, and the Alec Thomases just haven't really gone going over the last couple of weeks. And so if we can have a confluence where both the righties and the lefties play well together, I think that would go a long way in this series against the Washington Nationals. Would also be nice if we could get Jordan Lawlar to get going in any sort of direction. Again, he has been hitless so far in 2025 on the major league level. I have not been super impressed with Lawlar. People like to talk about his glove. He makes like one great play every 3 games with his glove and then makes like 2 errors in the other games. And so it's like, I don't know. Like there's obviously flashes with him, but he's still so young. He just clearly not ready, and we need to send him back down before we just ruin Jordan Lawlar. But the D-backs don't win this series against the Washington Nationals. It's going to get a little bit dicey entering June because after the Nationals, D-backs go on the road, which who knows could help them out. They play Atlanta, then Cincinnati, then Seattle, then San Diego, then Toronto. That's like above average major league teams going forward. Like maybe the Reds are, a borderline 500 team, but none of those teams I just named are going to be bad. Those are going to be feisty series. We're going to see either great pitching or a great offense or just a team that can do something to beat you. All those teams have at least a strength in some sort of area where if you don't watch out for that strength, if you don't scout against it, they can go out there and beat you for sure. The Mariners, they have great elite top-end pitching. The Reds, they're deep in overall young talent and like dynamic athletes. And so you can't sleep on any of these teams that you're going to be facing over the next few weeks. You have to take it series by series. I don't even like really previewing, weeks ahead. But for the D-backs, this is going to be a tough next few weeks going against those really good teams. And so you want to start off, on a good foot with a series win against the Washington Nationals. Start off the month of June with a series win. Sunday is Sunday is the first day of June. Saturday is the last day of May. Win both of those games. Win Saturday, win Sunday, enter June on a little hot streak, on a little winning streak. Throw away May because it has been such a disgusting month. I think the D-backs finished 4 games below 500 for the month of May. I just want to take this month and just rip it off the calendar and just forget about it. All the meltdowns, all the frustrations, all the bad management. It's been so frustrating to see. It's been such a disappointing season. But again, like all my friends tell me, they think I'm an emotional guy when it comes to baseball and sports, and I definitely am. I like to ride the emotional roller coaster. Maybe I ride it too much. My friends always tell me it's baseball. Listen, just stay 500 to the All-Star break, get hot in the second half, and then anything is possible. That is true, and that is the hope I'm hanging on to. D-backs just need to stay 500 until the All-Star break, and then we'll see what can happen in the second half of the season. That's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Come back tomorrow for more Diamondbacks news coverage and insight. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Doses.